This is where the fun begins.
Someone asked me to give the best reason why someone should read the expanded universe. After giving it a lot of thought, here's what I have to say. The expanded universe respects the reader. In the expanded universe, Luke Skywalker's optimism continues where it left off in Return of the Jedi. He's fulfilled hope to the galaxy just like Obi-Wan said he would, not like the Disney movies where he gave up on the Jedi or even the whole galaxy for that matter. The character you see in those movies is not Luke. Luke isn't a quitter. He's not a pessimist. He's a leader. He's inspirational. And he's always there for his friends in times of need. Another character is Han Solo. He's introduced to us in A New Hope as a loner, a man who cares only for himself and nobody else. But by the end of Return of the Jedi, that all turns around when he finally finds friends he can trust and a true love to spend the rest of his life with. And that's exactly what he does in the expanded universe. Han is a devoted husband and father to Leia and their kids. He loves his family above all else. In the new movies, Han turns out to be a selfish deadbeat dad who ran out on his family when things get tough. It's a complete 180 from the character that we saw from Return of the Jedi. Now, another thing the EU does is it rewards its readers. Attention to detail when it comes to continuity has never been done at such a level as when it was performed by the expanded universe. Avid readers will constantly be rewarded for their diligence as comics, novels, video games, and even children's books share connections throughout the entire series, making it almost a flawless, continuous story. And though it has its minor flaws, it's still the best overall story and continuity out there, period. That's what the EU does. It respects and rewards its readers. And that's the best reason you should give it a try. Long live the expanded universe.
I had fought the worst of all wars and witnessed the redemption of evil. I have seen balance restored to the Force. But order can turn to chaos, as it did when I was born. Now, with my loved ones and my loyal allies, I face a new challenge unlike any before. And I'm not sure at this time we can win.
Star Wars Vector.
Are you sure? So be it.
Good morning, everyone, and sorry for that short clip of Vector Prime if it didn't play all the way. Darth Toby came in, stepped on the mouse area, and yeah, it turned it off or something like that. Cut it short. But welcome. You know, little technical difficulties with the cat trying to lay on the keyboard and everything, but we made it. We are here. How are you guys doing? I see everybody's hopping on now, and the chat is going good here. And I am your host, Alora, and this is Caf Chat, your Thursday morning chance to sit down and nerd about George Lucas' era of Star Wars, talk about the topic of the time, and that would be now in the New Jedi Order, Vergere. So we'll get into Vergere, and then also Lucas Fact. and book of the week, cringe factor, and then any type of Star Wars news there is. And boy, do I have something that's quite comical to share with you guys if you haven't seen it already. Yeah, so how are you guys doing? You guys have your calf ready? No solo sauce, not milk. I don't see him in here right now, but it's not milk. Unless that's what you prefer to drink right now, milk, then that's cool. As long as it's blue and not green. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, let's see who's in the chat here. We have martial arts legend who has been hanging out for a little while, waiting for us to begin. Hey, OG, how are you doing? And then, of course, Swift -1 and sharing the avatars, the little emojis out that I have. And last night, I almost put Darth Talon on the roster. Darth Talon. I think that would be one of the most used ones here. So give me a 1 if you would like to see Darth Talon as an emoji. All right. And then, so thank you so much. And oh, gee, and I answered this one already. It was in the comics. And let's see here. So, OG, do you think Revenge of the Sith will make $1 million for the re-release this coming May? You know, I love Revenge of the Sith. That's my second favorite in George's 6 movies. However, under Disney, I would encourage people to just watch it at home and not give Disney the attention and money for something they never created. That's my standpoint there. So will it make money? Probably, because it's a George Lucas Star Wars creation, right? Just like the EU books are under his name within his era or within the timeline when he started his business, Star Wars or Lucasfilm in general. However, like I said, I would just highly recommend not to give that money to Disney. But that's totally up to you. You spend the money the way you want it. That's just what I recommend. OG isn't there continuity errors between Labyrinth of Evil and Clone Wars 03? There are little bit, but not much. During the time of the Battle of Coruscant, it was written differently slightly different in Labyrinth than what was shown on screen on 03 for Clone Wars 03. But it's not a huge discrepancy, really. Okay, let's see here. And then, let me see. I skipped over this. Hi, Conrado. How are you doing? How are you doing? Good morning. And then Jim the Despot's here. Good morning. And to our channel members as well as subscribers, you guys are amazing. We have 20, it's growing. So we have 24 beautiful souls watching right now. And I was going to do that watch party for Darth Angelus's full version of Heir to the Empire that he did Sunday, but I got some bad news within the family. And so I just decided not to do that or even mention or schedule it. So that will be coming soon here. I want to use my Sundays to do the watch parties or reviews and stuff, just a place to hang out. And then when we do channel member listen or watch parties, it'll still be scheduled on those Sundays. And March 9th, if you're a channel member, we are going to listen to Soldier for the Empire, the first book in Dark Forces. So schedule yourself in for 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to join. All right. And Anakin Batsy's here. Hey, OG, just got out of dentist appointment. Well, hopefully it was just a cleaning and nothing really major being done. But it's great to hear that you're taking care of your teeth. Gatekeep this shit. Hell yeah. Gatekeep it. Thoughts on Mark Hamill's pants falling. We are gonna get to that. That's the funny crap that we're gonna get to that. Gatekeepers and EU fans are worse than Shields. Chef from Yavin Base broadcasts. A failing channel with floundering engagement. Yeah, it's so fucking crazy. I can get into a huge thing about this, but not right now. Let's just chat right now. Mike says, don't know how long I'll be here. Stupid illness. Well, you take care of yourself. Rest, come back. I'm here probably for 2 hours. So, if you need to go back to sleep and let your body heal, then come back later and rewatch. We're always here for you, but you need to take care of you. Anakin says, Mark Hamill has become more like a Jake Skywalker and the Joker in recent years. Thanks for hanging out last night, Mike. Being sick sucks. Yes, it does. Yeah, I opted. Sorry, Justin. I opted to watch the last episode of the documentary of New Jedi Order. So I opted to watch that while I was prepping Caf Chat. And, a lot of the things that, like, of course, I never heard his interview with some of the authors that he presented last night. However, some of the interviews that were already done from the past, I've heard before. But so it's a great thing to listen to, hearing the authors being interviewed, like a fresh new interview and their perspective now versus when they first talked about it. So that was amazing. So HollowNet, go check out his documentary of the making of New Jedi Order. It is in 5 or 6 parts or something like that. Probably a little bit more. Lost count already. But I watched them all. And a lot of the interviews I've heard in the past, but there's brand new interviews with him and the authors like Lucino that are worth listening to. And even if you're not privy on all the making of New Jedi Order and those interviews that are from the past, that's another reason to dive in there and listen to how New Jedi Order was created, how much synergy there was between the company, the publishers, the authors, and even George Lucas. Yeah, so highly recommend. So Star Wars Scran is here. What's up? Woo, best stream to start my chilled time after work. Well, thank you for tuning in. Grab a calf now. Yes, grab your calf. Think of some contradictions as a form of a certain point of view. Okay. And then Martial Art says, OG, how did Obi-Wan get his name Ben in the EU? Oh shit. Now I'm drawing a blank on that one. Crap. OG's drawing a blank. Oh my God. I have to get back to you on that because I am friggin' drawing a blank. It's been a while since I discussed that, and I don't remember the origin of that. But yeah. Let's see here. And then how did Cadus get Darth title when both Sidious and Vader died during the unfinished second Death Star? So he got his name. You could say he named himself, basically. However, when it was time to give him a Darth title, Lucasfilm had a little contest for the fans. So they encouraged fans to drop potential names in this contest, and they would pick a winner. And they picked a winner, and I don't remember her name, or his name. I think it was a her, but I could be wrong. But anyways, and so Cadus won that contest. So Darth Cadus. So it's pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Let's see here. From living in Ben's Mason, Tatooine. There we go. Hello, Holocron. How are you doing? Good morning. Likey Shields creating content. It's no longer fun for the chef and Hick to it's causing them mental distress. We, on the other hand, are having a blast. Yes. And then hi Nick, how are you doing? What's up? How are you doing? Go touch some grass. You know what? I forgot to go fucking do that before I started. Holy shit. I'm breaking the fucking rules that Disney shills and anti-E people have been telling us since the buyout of Lucasfilm. But I'm looking at grass right now, so does that count? Does that count? So touching grass doesn't work anymore. They need to eat dirt. And the thing is, it's like that rhetoric, and I didn't even make the clip that I wanted to for here. Like I shared it on Twitter, but that rhetoric again is something that these Disney shills and anti-EU people have used since the buyout, when they wanted to rub our faces in about like, oh, the EU's dead, or they whatever their rhetoric is, so that's something that's been old. So it's kind of funny to hear someone who is supposed to be a fan of George Lucas Star Wars, no matter like what end you like, to use that on someone else who likes George Lucas Star Wars. I'm like, why are you using that type of rhetoric that the shills and anti-EU people? But I guess you could say maybe he's anti-EU. I don't know. But that verbiage is so fucking played out. It's like laughable now. It's like, come on, come up with something fucking creative, right? Like, this is like high school fucking talk, right? Go touch some grass, go ride some bike, go do something, because life is busy. Our life is not always about Star Wars. Well, no fucking shit. But the platform that we created here, like for example, mine, George Lucas era of Star Wars. And so when I go on my Twitter, no matter what I'm doing in my life, like during the day, it's going to be something about Star Wars. Sometimes I'll share something personal, sometimes and then when I come here to my YouTube channel, it's going to be about Star Wars. But most of the time, I'm not sharing personal life. I do share my yoga experience and stuff. It's kind of fun to see you guys' reaction and stuff to that, to show what I do. I run a couple of businesses myself. And so, yeah, I mean, so that fucking rhetoric is just old. It's old. It's outplayed. Just like the woke term is outplayed, or the racist, the ifs and phobes are fucking outplayed. They're nothing anymore. So it's all laughable when you hear someone start using it again to try to get a one up you, or talk shit about you, or talk shit towards you, or whatever. So that's just what I think about that. All right. Only unimportant Star Wars lore being discussed here. All right, great. The 710 podcast is here. Hello. Okay. And then we have Knights of Undercover. What's up, OG? Hey, how you doing here? All right, so I'm going to go through and say hi a little bit more, and then we're going to get into this funny-ass article, and then we'll get into the lore. Before we get into talk about Vergere, we will talk about Lucas Fact, Book of the Week. We'll talk about Vergere, so it gives you time to grab your New Jedi Order source book for us EU people who need to touch grass. Yeah, and then if you need to refresh your coffee, there's be time to do that, grab some snack. And then we'll get into cringe factor, which is something that, according to what Mark Hamill has said, we don't understand Star Wars. After 48 fucking years, we don't understand Star Wars. So what do you guys think about that? All right. So Star Wars Grants has just worked a 9-hour shift, ready to learn some Star Wars lore and drink my cap. Thank you. And let's see here. Conrado, I hope I'm not going to try that. Doheny and Disney finally ditched Star Wars like they are doing to the Doctor Who IP. Let's see here. And let's see here. Okay. I think I said hello to everyone, but let me go ahead and read this. OG, do you watch Clone Wars 03 while you watch the saga 1 through 6 in chronological order? Because I watch it after watching Attack of the Clones before I watch Revenge of the... You know what? I haven't done that in a while. But that would be something fun to watch, is like put on the 03 and it wouldn't take long to watch, like altogether, not even 2 hours or something like that. I could be kind of wrong. It could be slightly over 2 hours. Yeah, so that could be a great way, if you want to, a great way to, do a marathon watch of Star Wars on screen, and yeah. And Melissa Lord, what's up? How are you doing? Another channel member. And then, have I been enjoying the Shield War series? I watched the latest one. That was that was fucking crazy. That's all I got to say about that. Let's see here. Was not directed towards you. I was directing that towards Shield's Disney fans in Facebook group. Because it sounded like that was directed towards the EU fans who talk about the lore, but I guess you got to be more clear about that. Okay. Let's see here. But still, as I stand, that's such a played out rhetoric. Such a played out rhetoric. Let's see here. And they're all gonna love Andor season 2 as well. Oh, and Boar. Marsha was involved with the unwatchable edit of A New Hope. She helped 2 other editors. She then didn't do anything ever again apart from cropping George's work or crop on George's work. Yeah, so there are clips, and I forgot the name of the YouTuber who broke down all of that, and I apologize. Try to give credit where credit's due, but it's been a while since I watched his video. But he talks about all of that and how she wanted certain parts of what is now the deleted scenes in that probably would not have, benefited the movie as we've seen as it's formed today. So it's crazy how people think that Marsha is the one that saved Star Wars. She saved it in the edit. Well, no, there's no such thing, because you're always constantly tweaking it, editing until the final product, right? The last people to work on it, as we've seen Star Wars A New Hope as it is, was George and not Marsha, the other 2 editors. So that's interesting history right there. So I don't know where people think that it was solely her and that our Star Wars needed to be saved in the edits for whatever reason. Editing is always going back and making sure that everything seamlessly runs together, makes sense, or what have you. And sometimes you don't get it right the first few edits, and that doesn't mean it's destroyed or it's bad or anything like that. All right. So, combined with Chef's Normie rhetoric, I and a couple of my circle have been using this frequently. It definitely appears to be direct reaction. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. But anyways, let's move on. Knights of Undercover. Let me see here. Prediction of Dave Filoni, Heir to the Empire movie coming out in 2028. Mace Windu will return and get whitewashed and become Jake Windu, just like the AI anime Heir to the Empire fan film. Oh my God. And I pissed Jar Jar Jargons off for the review because I was very honest about it. There are some things I liked, yeah. I don't care for the anime. And it was completely made AI. So it wasn't like his ability to sit down and use technology like himself. And like how Darth Angelus did. But that's just my thing. I'm not a huge fan of AI. I think there's some benefits for it. But I think that I appreciate the skill of the hands-on when making art and making animation and stuff like that. So, but anyways, so there were some good things I did say, but there was some bad I wouldn't say bad. There was critique that I thought could have been done better. Don't care for the anime. And absolutely did not care for Mace being in the place of Sabayoth. I know it's a fan film, but it's also a recreation of Heir to the Empire. So I think that there should be some sort of consistency by maintaining the characters on who they are and why they are there. And Mace is not a part of that story. And that's all I got to say about that. All right. So let's get into this crazy ass article here. I wasn't going to talk about this, but I thought it was funny. Like the video and the title of the article is fucking funny. All right. So let me go ahead and share the screen. And then we'll get into our Lucas facts and then the book of the week. And then we'll start talking about Vergere. All right. Share the screen. Here we go. All right. You're like, what the hell? Yes, me too. So you're seeing the clip here, the video. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys seen this video already, but the article name just had me giggling. The Pants Gone Menace. You know me, I like to laugh at crazy shit, right? And make fun of crazy shit. The Pants Gone Menace. Watch moment Star Wars legend Mark Hamill's trousers fall down on the stage as horrified A-listers get flashed. Now, was he wearing any type of like whitey tighties or boxers or anything? I don't know. So let's go ahead and check this out. And it's, oh, there we go.
Okay.
Oh, ready.
Some things are hard to do yourself.
Fun.
Switching the H&R Block isn't one of them. Drag and drop your last return and make the switch in less than 2 minutes.
Brought to you by a commercial. Okay, I just want to watch the... It's not... It's not letting me go to the video.
That we lose ourselves in them completely. They create immersive cinematic landscapes that feel alive, whether they're set here in London or anywhere in the room like me. You must love film. So what makes us love cinema so much that we're all gathered here to celebrate tonight? For me, it's that films create worlds so vivid and stories so powerful that we lose ourselves in them completely. They create immersive cinematic landscapes that feel alive, whether they're set here in London or anywhere your imagination can take you. The 5 nominations for Best Film are...
Okay, so I'm going to leave that here. I couldn't get out of those little clips of those commercials, so I apologize. It wasn't letting me move the screen around to press skip like they usually do. But it's so funny because... that podium was mostly covered. Like if it was a just a single bar or see-through podium, everybody would have seen a lot of something, I guess you could say. And if the camera was on side profile, it would have exposed a lot more. And it's funny because he's talking about love of movies of, you know, and all that. And all of a sudden his pants go down. Now, why the hell was his pants already like, why were they falling off anyways? Why wasn't he wearing a belt? You know, a lot of guys that I see who wear tux will have some sort of belt, right? Some sort of belt. And then also, you know, why wasn't his pants buttons and zipped up? Is this man gone senile where he probably went to the bathroom and did his stuff, walked out, and his pants managed to stay up and he sat down and then he went backstage to ready to present? I don't know. Or what was he fucking doing backstage? Or I don't know. I don't know. It's so fucking crazy to imagine, and how fucking embarrassing as well. Yoda took his belt to troll him on Dagobah. Biden 2.0. And then let's see here. Has Hamill heard of a belt? I know, right? I don't think anybody has ever mentioned, like, why is he not wearing a belt? What happened to his belt? Like, usually guys, I don't care if the pants, because you're fitted for your tux, right? Like, guys are always fitted for their tux. And usually, maybe this is something he pulled out of his closet. I don't know. But you're usually fitted for your tux. And guys usually wear a belt. And depending on like what you like. Sometimes it's a country type, like a country type of belt with a big buckle, or sometimes it's just a formal type leather belt or whatever, you know. But my point is, usually a belt is worn for that. Marsha edited his belt right off his pants. Oh goodness. And then so he's over here struggling, trying to keep up with the prompt, which I give credit for, I guess you could say. But I mean, it gives you like, what the fuck was going on before he walked up? Why didn't his pants fall down when he walked to the podium? Yes, mine has ram skull on it. See, I knew. See, and hey, so assassin, I was wondering what's going on with you. I thought maybe you were milking a cow for your calf. All right. Wind got my power out for a bit. Dang. All right. Texas is really, really giving hell over there, huh? I only think about Star Wars, so I'm having a big Texas-sized belt buckle. Man, I need to touch some grass. Yeah, so this is funny. Let's go ahead and see what was said in this here. Luke Skywalker actor Mark Hamill faced the dark side when his trouser dropped to his knees as he revealed the Best Film Award winner at the BAFTA. A clip unearthed by the Sun shows Star Wars favorite left scrambled to hold up his pants while focusing on the teleprompter. Look at him. His face is so much in distress. Look at that. He's reading. He is like in distress, embarrassed. Look at that. Oh no, my pants are falling. Oh, that's so crazy. And then stage side A-listers watched the horror, but Mark's blushes were spared by lectern at London Royal Festival, which hid the blooper from the 3.8 million watching on TV. An insider who had a close-up view from the front row told us Mark started speaking, then his suit trouser just dropped to his knees. It was like they were too big for him. Where is the fucking belt? If you're wearing trousers, like if you're wearing your suit pants and they feel big, where's the fucking belt? All the big stars such as Timothy and Ariana Grande, blah 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 blah, like Adrian, would have seen it from their angle. Most guests looked horrified but said nothing. It was a moment that you wouldn't have believed unless you saw it. They were turning to each other, other wide eyes, as if to say, "Did that just happen?" Anyways, I thought I'd share this just because this was some fucking crazy shit. It's George Lucas revenge. The fuse on the karmic bomb is very short during the end times. I don't know. Theory got all excited. Now, if that was Hayden, that he would have been super excited. I will just leave it at that. You know, just leave it at that. Oh my God. But that's right there. It's like, that's I'm still laughing about that. That's what's going on with me. Where's the belt? Mark, where's your fucking belt? And hopefully he didn't go commando. All right. I just put that out there. Sorry, you guys. Martial arts says, OG, you're beautiful for a 40-something-year-old woman. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right. So let's get into our first topic here. Let me find my clip. And I rearrange these so it's a lot easier to find. So here
That's
we
great.
go.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
And here you go. Caf Chat. Lucas Facts here. Lucas Facts. So January 24th, 1977. So this is sources from the Making of Star Wars timeline. So this is about, the films, the company here. ILM films additional shots of aliens for the cantina scene at a small studio in on La Brea Avenue. Lucas put up an additional $10,000 to add new creatures created by Rick Baker. The original filming for the scenes were less than what Lucas had hoped for due to the hospitalization of makeup supervisor Stuart Freeborn. So that's a Lucas Facts here. Just last minute. There's always last minute stuff. Films always have last minute stuff. This is one of Lucas's last minute add-ons, additions to what we know now as A New Hope. And paying a small studio for more creatures, aliens to add to the cantina scene. So La Brea, man, I remember going to the LA Brea tar pits back in the day. You know what's so crazy? I have never been there yet. And, one of my kids is down at UCLA right now. I've never been there at all. I'm not shitting you. All right, let's see here. Smash the like button. Let's see here. Okay. Soul Assassin. When I was encouraging everybody to get extra drinks and stuff like that earlier, get their drinks and stuff, I kind of joked around about your milk situation, your caffeine milk situation earlier. So you missed that. I'm kind of sad you missed it. So you might have to rewind it to catch it. Let's see here. Field trip to 6th grade, I believe. Wow, that's crazy because we didn't have that. Stuart Beatty wrote the original Star Wars script. You guys are on fire today. Why did George remove the wolf in his special editions? Did he? I thought I see him in there. Okay. Here you go. I've been in the Fountain of Youth many times on field trip. It does work. Laugh out loud. Yes, it does. Apparently, I wasn't subscribed. I fixed that. Thank you for keeping Real Star Wars alive. You're welcome. And thank you for subscribing. Let's see here. Normie would hire Stuart Beatty day one of his circus film takeover. There we go. 37 beautiful souls in here watching. Join us in the chat if you're watching on the Twitter side. I would love to hear what you share anything about George Lucas or Star Wars. Get in the conversations that we are discussing here today, like including this Lucas fact about hiring for La Brea studio on La Brea Avenue for additional aliens because George was like, I need more. Of course, and I agree. Not like, the certain creator of Andor who was like, I don't want aliens. I don't want none of that, And of course, he's not even a Star Wars fan or whatever. But George is like, I'll pay extra because we need more aliens because Star Wars is basically not just about humans, right? So not just about humans. All right. And the book of the week is something that links our chats and our read of the new Jedi Order, but it's not a book within the series. So we're going to go ahead and get into that now. I want to get these done so that we can get straight to our topic here because it's coming up at 10 already in about 15 minutes my time. So let's get into this.
I hate to say it, but it looks like
Story.
the you're searching for doesn't exist.
Impossible. Perhaps the archives are incomplete.
If an item does not appear in our records, it does not exist.
All right. So, book of the week, we're going to Rogue Planet. Why not, since we're talking about Vergere, right? So, the author, Greg Bear, cover artist, David Stevenson. So, the publication dates are hardcover, May 2000, a paperback, May 2001. And the placement in the timeline, the historical timeline of the lore of Star Wars is 29 BBY. So you have a young Anakin on the front cover with an Obi-Wan here. And there was so much continuity notes for this that I had to break it down and be concise with some of the stuff that I wanted to share. There's some things that I did leave out a little. And but this only goes to show how, the creation of the Star Wars timeline, the lore, was so thought of and in sync with each other. And if there was any type of discrepancies, it was later, it was corrected. Yeah. So let's get into this. 2001 New Jedi Order series was already begun being published. Rogue Planet can be seen as essentially a chapter into the storyline. So meaning that it's a historical event that's tied in from the past, which describes the galaxy threatened by brutal invaders who wield organic technology aliens. The Yuuzhan Vong are not detailed by name in the novel. Their presence is implied in this sketchy description of the Far Outsiders. Zonama Sikot makes first appearance in the novel and again in New Jedi Order. Even though there is no Republic military, Tarkin holds rank of commander in the Republic Outland regions security force, while being a lieutenant governor in Cloak of Deceptions that was published in 2001. So Cloak of Deception is before then. So he's still a lieutenant governor, but he is also the commander of the Republic Outland regions security forces. So we'll get into that. Tarkin is responsible for forming the ORSF out of the local defense forces and made use of the compensated Trade Federation warships, which alarmed the Republic. So there you go. So it gives us more into the background of Tarkin and probably why he was brought in and by the side of Palpatine as they started forming the Empire. He was a useful person to him. It revealed some of the repercussions of the Trade Federation from their botched invasion of Naboo and has been ordered to dismantle by the Senate, yet the decree was poorly enforced. And why? Because they basically secretly formed their droid army, right? And then so we see that. So they're still working undercover because we know are in the shadows, the Trade Federation, because we know who the person is behind both what we'll see later on with the GAR, Grand Army of Republic, the clones, and the Separatists, which is part of which Trade Federation is a part of. So we know that's Sidious or Palpatine. So right now, they're working in secret, forming this droid army, in which we could say that the Senate doesn't know about, really, at this point. Wraith Sienar from the 1987 source book was identified as the manufacturer for the TIE fighters. So that's when all of this happened with the TIE fighters and where it first was recognized on who the manufacturer was for the TIE fighters, which was very interesting because we needed a starting point of when or how or where these ships were being made. We do see the evolution of like the X-Wing and other vessels from the PT on towards the OT. So I thought that was interesting to keep and share with you guys, especially those who are following and love the development of all the vessels, ships, starfighters, all of that. A new Jedi was introduced named Thracia Cho Lim, who was married and has disdain towards Mace Windu, who was never married or for never having been married or having any children. This was against episode 2 which established the Jedi at the time don't marry. So there you go. So a little bit of information here. There was a lot of continuity notes here. I mean, this looking things up, researching in my source books and all of that. There was a lot going on that this added to for the lore. And when you watch HoloNet's latest, his last installment of the making of New Jedi Order, they do talk about Rogue Planet in it. So it was very interesting to hear about that. And Vergere too, what made her appearance, I forgot to put this in here, but this is her first appearance in the lore is, yeah, it is. Even though she was already a character being thought of and stuff, her first appearance was here as well. So I had to make sure I got that right. Let's see here. Mandalore did a great video on the Imperial Navy recently. Yes, and I shared it on Twitter. Mandalore never disappoints with his vids. No, he doesn't. He does an excellent job. It takes him some time, but quality right there. So I highly recommend going and listening to any of his videos, like his bio videos of characters, his Republic historical timeline, all of that. I made a post about Sayonara on an anonymous board once, and someone said it was Star Wars version of Elon Musk. What? Okay. Vergere is the mentor in the hero's journey, not Luke in New Jedi Order. Sub to Holocron, yes. So there you go. So the book here, if you don't have it, then I would suggest to get it on your bookshelves. Try not to purchase one with the Legends label if you can possibly avoid it. I recommend avoiding it. Yeah, so it's a good read along. It's not the best, but it's not the worst either. It brings in a lot of continuity into the historical timeline. You know, those you don't really need to know continuity to enjoy the book. But it helps. It helps build the lore. And if you know, and you're privy, you know, the continuity timeline, you know your shit within the timeline, then you're going to pick up on the stuff. You're going to pick up on it. All right. New Jedi Order events directly led to the villain of Legacy of the Force. Yes. Yes, it does. All right. So here you go. Rogue Planet. A great segue into our lore talk now. Sorry, that felt good to yawn and stretch. I have the floor heater on and I got a blanket on my lap. And I feel so freaking comfortable here. And I have coffee in my hand. And we're sitting here talking about Star Wars. Oh, damn, just a perfect morning, right? It's a bit cloudy out. It looks like it's going to rain. So, and I'm wearing a sweater top. So, and some sweatpants. So I am friggin' cozy. My hair is up in a bun. I got coffee, heaters on, blankets on lap. I am so happy to be here with you. And Vex, good morning to you. Another channel member hopping on. What's up? All right. And one more time, March 9th. That's a Sunday. At least I think it's a Sunday. I could be giving you the wrong dates because I do that sometimes. Let's see here. March 9th. Yes, March 9th, 7:30. And that's the beginning of daylight saving time. Anyways, 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Listen party to, and this is for channel members, to Soldier for the Empire, the first installment of Dark Forces. So inviting all channel members and those who are mods here will get a link from me to come in and mod and enjoy. And that's my way of giving back to the mods and coming and hanging out with us. So mark your calendars, you guys. I would love to have everybody who's a channel member. And if you're not, subscribe now, or not subscribe, become a member now, and hang out with you guys to enjoy some true Star Wars lore. Hell yeah. Hell fucking yeah. All right. So let's go ahead. You guys know me. If I can do it, I will nerd out and create PowerPoints. Now I'm finally on balance points, but I went ahead and because Vergere was first introduced in the first portion of all the books I've read so far or reread, I kept the maps from there since the last from Jedi Eclipse. So, but balance point is now beginning for me in my reread. Excited about that. There's a lot of shit that happens in that one. Holy crap. With Jason, with Leia. Oh my God. Fucking crazy. But I won't get into that right now. We'll talk about that later. So, Vergere, what is your guys' opinion on the character? Her origins began in Rogue Planet. So if you never read Rogue Planet, do you really need to read it to know her? Not necessarily. That's just basically her origins of when she split from the Jedi Order. I see her as a Jedi traitor. She is a Sith. She was being taught the dark side, I guess you can say. Now, what was she? Was she an apprentice? Or was she an acolyte type person? That is the question, right? Because it never was fully nailed down. But, and maybe it was because they called her a Sith. Soul Assassin says, interesting character, but I have to know if she eats like the Roadrunner from Looney Tunes. He left that comment on my Twitter too. That's fucking funny. And then let's see here. I'm not familiar with the character. That's okay. That is okay. Maybe Vergere learned the lesbian witch magic. Well, we're not talking about Disney Star Wars, so that doesn't apply. Similar to Tahiri in Legacy of the Force. Right. She was an apprentice to Cadus. And then once he was defeated, she basically went off on her own, and it seemed like she was trying to make her way away from that history, like make amends with herself, realizing what she did was bad and stuff like that. If there was any type of like story of her like having her own solo novel between that or somewhere in that timeline with her reckoning with her choices and stuff, then maybe a little bit of that change, because it kind of went from her being his puppet, his apprentice, to all of a sudden now she's like reckoning with it and she's trying to come in terms with everything and stuff like that. Little tiny disjointment, I guess, just a little, but you do have a time period between then to know that there was some sort of like self-reflection and stuff, but it would have been good to get a little bit more of that backstory between the facts. So I get what you're saying, purist, on that. All right. So with this right here, next week we will get into the balance point, maps on where we're at with the timeline of the invasion. So, but we're still in the Jedi Eclipse version of that right now because Vergere, that's where she was introduced along with Elan. I said it's Elan. All right. So, of course, they're still making their way in. Of course, Merker is one of them that were places that they attacked as well. So, Vergere, she lived with the Vong for 50 years. I hate that when I downloaded this kind of jumped down, but at least you could still see everything. Let me go ahead and take this little bit of stamp out here. There we go. All right. So she lived with the Vong for 50 years. So we know in Rogue Planet is when we first see her, and she basically is with the Vong by that time. So I'm not going to give away any of the story, just a little bit of just, focus back in that time. And we wonder, okay, so what was she doing during that time, right? Like, how was she not sacrificed? Is she that manipulative that she made her way into the Vong culture without being a sacrifice or becoming a slave? Then you have to think about, okay, so how was she with Yoda and the masters of her time? So there's a lot to think about with that character. And and I talk about this like with Soul Assassin and other people all the time. And it's being mentioned by them as well, that if the buyout didn't happen, there are so many areas that could be not redeveloped, but developed, like the history of Vergere during the time of the Vong, having a story during that time, just like it's like be a standalone, but it'd still be part of the historical timeline, right? Of like what happened with her and how did she become so manipulative? Was she always that manipulative so it was easy for her to turn Sith or dark? What did the Vong do to her? How did she acclimate to their culture? Because they're basically any kind of being that doesn't see and live and accept their beliefs. That's blasphemy. They need to be destroyed, to be sacrificed, right? So that's where this all comes from. My mind's like, whoa, okay, so what happened during that time? We can only come up with like, okay, so we know that she's manipulative. Was she always that way, or did the Vong teach her that way, or what had happened, or was Sidious's impact on her a big one? And then we have Grumpy Old Ninja in. How are you doing? Shows she's more cunning than she looks to survive within the Vong society. Right. Imagine the new Jedi Order story told animated using Sator cinematic graphics. Epic. Oh, that would be something. That would be something crazy. I agree. Maybe she's Bird Palpatine. She's a Fosh, I believe. Yeah, I think, and I forgot to write down her species. I think you're right on that. Let me see. Is it in here? All right. There is a section about her in the source book on page 77. 77. All right. And there's about the tiers, which I'm going to get into here pretty soon. All right. So, and her characters is one. Yeah, she is a Fosh. Her character is a character that that is not very well known to the galaxy. Just kind of like a Yoda, like Yoda's species, but we were never given the species name. It's possible she wanted to use a Vong to strike at Palpatine. No, I don't think so. But what's interesting, and I'll keep on reading here. So I'll keep this up and keep on reading. She taught them about the Republic and the Jedi. So that's where I know where I'm like, you're like, is it possible she was going to use a Vong to strike at Palpatine? Who knows? And it's so interesting because, like, within the storyline of the New Jedi Order, she teaches the Vong about the Republic, like it says here, and then also about all the routes, the hyperspace routes, and about Coruscant and how to strike at Coruscant. So that's very interesting. And then she became a familiar too. And this was separate familiar of to, I don't know, it's like the stupid thing that like moves things around whenever I delete or download it on here. Vergere became a familiar to the priestess Falun. So that was before Elan. So she made friends with and became their familiar. And that's probably a way of survival, right? In a culture, in a society that calls you an infidel if you don't agree or live or see the way they do, right? So very interesting there. Just glad I made it. I'm glad you are here. Yep. Fashu. Get Vergere and Kira in a room to debate the Force. That would be crazy. I think Kriya would be so at wit's end with how Vergere talks that she probably would kill her. I think so. I don't like Vergere's character. I don't care for that much either, and Kira and Kriya isn't either. But I think Vergere would have been killed by her because she would have been at her wit's end with her for how she talks. How she talks and almost like she tries to talk in riddle or some kind of riddle speak like Obi-Wan. It's but not like Obi-Wan. It's kind of weird. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I remember in the new Essential Guide to Alien Species, her species homeworld is unknown, but probably somewhere in the corporate sector. Yeah, that's the thing. It's unknown, I guess you could say. I think her species is a cloak of in Cloak of Deception 2. Maybe it's Shadow Hunter. I think it might be Shadow Hunter. That I didn't look up. But it could be, I don't know. But it's like especially when you get into the New Republic era timeline in general, like post Return of the Jedi, that species probably mostly fell out of existence or known. And that's why it's questioned in the New Jedi Order about who she is and her species. Looks like I've never seen the species before. Doesn't mean that it doesn't exist either. And other people haven't recalled the species either. One of those books, yeah. I would assume Cloak because Lucino wrote it. That's really true. True. You got a point there, Massa. All right, Vergere and Elan in the Lucino duology Agents of Chaos. Pretty sure that's her first appearance in New Jedi Order. All right, so what's interesting about her is she could make herself small in the Force, and we've seen that done later on with Jason. We've seen that then done with the Masters after learning about that. And she would make herself so small that, like, it's described in Legacy of the Force, that it's like you're just a bunch of, like, you see your world and surrounding as molecules, and it could be disjointing at first. So I love that description during that time when Ben was learning how to make himself small in the Force, or hide in the Force, I guess you could say. And because she could do that, she can manipulate molecules as well. So something kind of new, I guess, kind of not, because we never really see this with any other type of master, including Yoda. But then again, doesn't mean that he didn't know about it, you know? So it's very interesting seeing these new abilities being introduced and then thinking back at like the characters you already seen, like Master Yoda, and you're like, did he know or could he have done that? And when you look at the history of Force use abilities, not all Jedi can do the same thing. It's not like a set thing of like, once you are trained, you can do everything. It's very diverse, I guess you can say. You know, and the one person that I like to use a lot in that is Cornhorn, because his line doesn't have the telekinesis ability. However, they have other abilities, which is pretty interesting. And then you see other masters and other Jedi who can't use certain abilities versus others. So I think that keeps the Force more of a mystery. It's not a once you're trained in the Force, you can use everything. You just don't download all this shit and can do it. It's very diverse, and people's range of abilities varies from person or species to species. Hey, hola and hell. All right. She knew the lesbian Scissor Fist clan voodoo. Let's see here. Hello, dystopian. How you doing? I see you in the chat. But does I'm like stuttering. But does Vergere know the word? That the bird is the word. Oh God. Now I'm gonna have that song in my head. Thank you, Soul Assassin. Thank you. All right, so with the molecules, manipulation of molecules, when we talked about Elan, her familiar, she was with her when they were defecting, when they had that plan to destroy the Jedi with that bio agent that they were going to try to infect the Jedi with, and it backfired in a sense. They had to escape from the human brigade or whatnot, the peace brigade, sorry. And so, you know, Elan basically died from it, but Vergere didn't, and she escaped, but she escaped back to the Vong, which was very interesting. Why would she go back to the Vong? I mean, there's explanation. I'm just leaving this out here, like some sort of explanation, but she goes back to the Vong. But before she does, you know, she meets she's in contact with Han and she cries some healing tears to give to Mara for the comb spur disease. So they also use that as a way to get closer to the Jedi. Now, was it sincere? And that's the question here, because she is a manipulative son of a bitch. Yes, I said it. She stayed with the Vong for 50 years. She basically is a Jedi traitor and a traitor to the Republic, old and new, by teaching the Vong about them. And in turn, she learned more about the Vong. So very manipulative here. So she used the tears that she made that can heal or help keep the disease at bay, the infection at bay for Mara, as a way to get closer to the Jedi so that they can infect the Jedi, right? So Han takes that vial, and you know, basically, you know, Vergere does return back to the Vong, because we know later on Jason is captured and she helps torture him, and we'll talk more about that portion of her character timeline as we get towards that. We're not going to skip ahead. I'm keeping in time with my read and the timeline events here. And So she gives the tears. Mara takes the tears because they're like skeptical. They're like, should we trust her? If we meet with her and her friend, the defect, do we trust them? Do we trust these tears? What if this is another agent that's gonna kill Mara or spread some kind of disease or virus or whatever, right? But Mara's like, fuck this shit, and she drinks some of it. And her body starts going through some healing, which scares the hell out of like Luke and them because how she's reacting during the healing. And it doesn't fully heal her. We know what fully heals later on. And we'll get to that point too in the timeline. And so there's a little bit of bright or good news, I guess you could say. And so they are then confused about this Vergere. And rightfully so, because once Vergere later on in the timeline, once she is under the Republic as a prisoner and Luke gets to talk to her, he questions what she's saying. He questions her philosophy. Jason also questions her philosophy, but Jason under torture gives into it in a bit. We see that. And that's just another like another way of saying him, another reason for him going dark, I guess you could say. I don't think Jason is that fucking strong to overcome a torture and manipulation and all this, like every bit of shit that he went through under the Vong and Vergere. I don't think he's that fucking strong in the Force and as a character to overcome it and not turn dark. And when you listen to HoloNet's last installment of the making of New Jedi Order, like comprising all the interviews and having an interview with some of the authors, you know, Lucino was like, I left it all in a gray area. And that's including Jason. They were playing around with the Force about what kind of, excuse me, what is balance? Yeah, it was about a year of torture because like even during that time, Pierce, like, you know, we've seen like in with Jaina, her going through bits of dark, like bouts of darkness because of losing both brothers, you know, especially a twin, her baby brother, but then a twin too. That's, you know, you're tied to from birth, even before birth. Fucking crazy shit. But going back to Lucino and like this gray areas that he was doing. And I as I recall in that interview, George is like, no, we're not going to go that way. We're not going to go into gray areas kind of deal. So that's why you see these gray areas being questions and being drawn up in New Jedi Order, and then it returning back to light is balanced, dark is not. So yeah. So that's an interesting, if you guys want to, you know, learn all the dynamics with the creation of the series and why they did things the way they did. And I think it was brilliant in a sense, even though balance is still light side. I think it's brilliant to even have these characters and Luke building this new Jedi Order, establishing himself as one of the leaders and stuff like that, and protecting the galaxy, where the Jedi stance is and stuff like that, especially with an invasion of a species they know nothing about, which questions reality in a sense, that they went into some gray areas, but there's no such thing as a gray Jedi, really. But they did go into some gray areas in a sense of questioning and keeping the Force in question, and how it works and stuff like that, and questioning like life in general. Let's see here. Spoken like someone with reading proficiency of a third grader. I don't know who you're talking to. Oh, but hey, New Jedi Order boring as shit, man. Okay, yeah, that goes to that. I was like, what? I'm like waxing poetry here, like I'm waxing all this shit, and you're like speaking, and I'm like, what the hell? But I know what you're talking about now. That's funny. That is funny. Yeah. So great way to get into the new Jedi Order too is allowing yourself to go in knowing that a lot of things are going to be in question, because this invasion brings a lot of reality into question for these characters. Like we see Luke contemplating, should we act this way? Should we respond this way? Because I'm worried that my knights are going to turn to the dark side. And that would be detrimental to what is going on right now. The invasion, protecting the citizens the best way we could. So, all of that, I think, was well done in a sense. And then inside that, in that last bit of the documentary and stuff like that, and I think it was no, okay, I'm not gonna. One of the authors was saying something about how they needed to get Luke back to Luke, right? And because I've heard many people say that Luke Skywalker wasn't really himself in the beginning as the invasion was beginning in the New Jedi Order. And I think rightfully so, because again, he's like trying to question which direction he should take his Jedi, because he doesn't want them to turn dark. And we know Luke's history. He's always doubtful. He's always questioning. He has his fears because he doesn't want a bunch of Darth Vaders, right? And so they're like, we need to get Luke back on track to how the fans are used to seeing him. So we see a little shift in it, because Luke comes to terms with where he needs to be with his Jedi and where they need to be in this battle, in this invasion. And I think it's brilliant. So now that I talked about Luke, and it's supposed to be about Vergere and all that, we'll get back to the topic here. But let me see what you guys are saying. Disney calls their version the dyad. The version of what? New Jedi Order have been more mature, and Andor and Mandalorian combined. Correct. Certainly a measure of ambiguity, right? A lot of philosophical debate and questioning with the new Jedi, or the Jedi Order, as well as the Republic. Correct. Political things done to try and play against failure. Probably spelled it wrong. Prejudice, etc. Yeah, so there's a lot of crap going on here that makes you think it's not just, oh, it's dark, I hate it, it's blah, 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 blah. If you really gave it a chance, despite you not liking how dark it is and people dying and stuff like that, like there's a lot of stakes being happened here, right? You get into the philosophical debate, good versus bad. If we pursued them this way, will the Jedi turn into a bunch of Darth Vaders? You have a lot of that because they're dealing with something they don't know about. That has no, like, the Force doesn't affect. They're blind in the Force, basically. They're blind in a species that blind in the Force. The Jedi don't know how to react to them. Now, if the Force was a part of them, then there probably would be dark side, right? Probably. That's the conclusion at the end. There's a whole, I can't wait till we get towards the end. It'll be some time before we do, and how the Force perceived the Vong and why they are the way they are. But with Vergere, a little manipulative little son of a bitch. Yes, I said it again, because she is. Lucino was trying to make her as a another portion or example of a Yoda character, in a sense, or an anti-Yoda character. I remember him saying that, anti-Yoda character. So if that's the fact, because many people I had debates with were saying Vergere is just another Yoda, and I'm like, well, Yoda never tortured or manipulated people. So how did you come to this conclusion when you read the character? And then they would say, oh, well, she was only trying to help Jason. Okay, so help him by what? Allowing torture and torturing, being a part of the torture and manipulating him in his thought process, talking the way she does about the Force and the Jedi, that's not very Yoda, you know? So that was like those debates I've had with people, those talking back and forth and discussions, I guess you could say. Quite interesting how they think that she's another Yoda. And those who know this character has read this series, what do you think about that? I want to know. Did you see her as another Yoda character? And how did you see it that way? Because when I first read it, I was like, man, this thing is like very manipulative. She's like a puppet to the Vaughn. You know, it's fucking crazy. We have 53 beautiful souls listening, watching. Thank you so much. Come into the chat. Let's discuss this. Especially if you read the new Jedi Order and you know the character Vergere, I want to hear what you think. I really do. I want to hear what you think, because I'm not trying to jump ahead to those scenes with Jason and her manipulating and torturing, but I just want to know, and we'll probably get into more of this later on. So if you don't want to talk right now and you want to wait for that, then that's fine, because we're in the early introduction stages of her in the series, right? Yoda is a Force conduit, a teacher. To be anti-Yoda would be against that. Pretty cool. All right. All right. So these tears, because we're talking just about her first introduction into the series and stuff, and she does give these healing tears, and we'll get more into the healing tears later on as we progress and talk about her again in the timeline. These healing tears, Vergere's tears. Vergere's tears glands contain a potent curative agent vastly more powerful than Bacta. And because this is a source book RPG, I'm going to just add this here. In game terms, the substance restores vitality points, wound points, and ability to score points. So, has all that fun stuff there. If you have the source book, you know what I'm talking about. A dose of Vergere's tears can either be ingested orally or absorbed through the skin. The primary effects is that the tears grant, and it tells more about that. So there's a little bit about her tears, and her agents here. And so we know that she left a vial, and later on they make synthetic version of that. Seal goal, not seagull. And her workers and her medics make another substance of that, and so Mara takes that, and it keeps the comb spurs at bay. It doesn't fully heal her, and we'll go through that and how she fully gets healed later on. So Vergere, introduction of her, uses her healing ability with her tears, and maybe it's species only. I don't know. Maybe it's because she can manipulate molecules, which kind of is hinted in her story here when she does it. So we'll get more into that later on as we go through the timeline with these characters and all we're talking about here. So I thought it was very interesting. And of course, we are now concluding with the Jedi Eclipse portion of the timeline, getting into Balance Point and beyond. So I can't wait to share that with you on the areas of the map here. So that's that. So I hope really that sparked you guys to look more into the character if you don't know much about her, or if you haven't began reading along with us, that maybe you pick up the book, or if you reread, or if you read them before, choose to reread again. And sometimes I've skipped along in certain series in Star Wars, in the Star Wars timeline. So maybe you do pick up Balance Point and read from there so you can join in the talk next week. Now, again, this is not about the book reviews. It's about breaking down and getting deeper into these books with these characters, with what's going on in the scenarios and stuff like that. Because I don't have time to do a book review. And Pierce is doing that on his channel, which is amazing. Pure Unadulterated Star Wars. And I think at this point, we should just dive in and talk about certain events, certain characters, what's going on, breaking down what's going on within, and getting, engulfed in this timeline here. And of course, it's going to follow along the path, the book release, or the path of the book, the novels, because they're the ones that created the timeline, right? Vergere. She's going to be a very interesting talk later on. Very interesting talk later on. So now here's your chance to refresh your drink. I need to do that too. You heard my voice getting rough a little. I don't know why it does that sometimes. So I'm going to put this back on, and we're going to segue in towards our cringe factor now. So what did Mark Hamill have to say that proves that we don't know Star Wars after 48 years later, or so on and so forth? I don't know, but we'll get into that here quickly. So let's go ahead and refresh our drinks and get into the next segment.
Someone asked me to give the best reason why someone should read the expanded universe. After giving it a lot of thought, here's what I have to say. The expanded universe respects the reader. In the expanded universe, Luke Skywalker's optimism continues where it left off in Return of the Jedi. He's fulfilled hope to the galaxy, just like Obi-Wan said he would, not like the Disney movies where he gave up on the Jedi, or even the whole galaxy for that matter. The character you see in those movies is not Luke. Luke isn't a quitter. He's not a pessimist. He's a leader. He's inspirational. And he's always there for his friends in times of need. Another character is Han Solo. He's introduced to us in A New Hope as a loner, a man who cares only for himself and nobody else. But by the end of Return of the Jedi, that all turns around when he finally finds friends he can trust and a true love to spend the rest of his life with. And that's exactly what he does in the expanded universe. Han is a devoted husband and father to Leia and their kids. He loves his family above all else. In the new movies, Han turns out to be a selfish deadbeat dad who ran out on his family when things get tough. It's a complete 180 from the character that we saw from Return of the Jedi. Now, another thing the EU does is it rewards its readers. Attention to detail when it comes to continuity has never been done at such a level as when it was performed by the expanded universe. Avid readers will constantly be rewarded for their diligence as comics, novels, video games, and even children's books share connections throughout the entire series, making it almost a flawless, continuous story. And though it has its minor flaws, it's still the best overall story and continuity out there, period. That's what the EU does. It respects and rewards its readers. And that's the best reason you should give it a try. Long live the expanded universe.
So uncivilized.
All right. So I hate when shit skips. I don't know if you guys seen that skipping around on there, but there we go. Minor flaws. Dawn of the Jedi pops up. Oh, goodness. Yeah, but, we get through the shit. Here we go. Cringe factor. All right. Are you guys ready for this? Mark Hamill. This is from Screen Rant, and this was about a day ago. Let me get rid of some of these guys so we don't hear videos pop up. By Thomas Bacon. Again, the bacon has returned. Do we sizzle him? We'll find out. Do we burn him? Another thing, right? Mark Hamill reveals his first impression of Luke Skywalker, proving how badly we, us fans, still misunderstand Star Wars 48 years later. 48 years later. So, this is a fun little picture clip of all three of our heroes, our beloved heroes that introduced us to Star Wars. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think it is at, like, what impression, what did Mark say, proven that we did not understand Star Wars? What's up, HoloNet? Great series, man. Hey, HoloNet's here, huh? Hey. I see you're talking about one of my favorite characters, Vergere, is so wonderful in the new Jedi Order. Nice. She is a fascinating character, but you know, it's so interesting to see how people perceive her and how there's opposite ends of how people perceive her, you know. And we'll get more into her character arc as we follow the timeline of New Jedi Order. And everybody, if you haven't had a chance to watch the documentary of the making of the New Jedi Order, go subscribe and check out HoloNet. And again, I would love to get you in for Talking EU. So we need to get that scheduled here soon, according to our own schedules. All right, so back to this article here. What do you think was said? OG is just sexist, internalizing misogyny, obviously. Yeah. Let's see here. Celebrated Star Wars actor Mark Hamill, who lost his pants. I want to make a clip. I have a clip in mind about that. That's freaking crazy. He held his composure mostly, but man, that's fucking crazy. Has recalled his first impression of Luke Skywalker, and his words serve as a reminder to the true message of Star Wars. Again, we'll get to that. Nobody ever imagined quite how successful Star Wars would become. According to his friend Steven Spielberg, even George only expected the first movie to gross 15 to 20 million in the box office. Yeah, if you watched and read, like, if you watch the making of and the interviews and stuff, or if you read like the Star Wars archives or the films of George Lucas, I got the title wrong, I'm sorry. You'll hear him talk about that. Like, they weren't expecting it to be successful, and that's why we have like Splinters of the Mind's Eye, because that was going to just be the follow-up sequel to that, and a cheap way of getting another movie produced, but not necessarily a continuation. So it's pretty interesting how that all played out. And then it also says Mark Hamill originally thought the Star Wars was a parody, but he was won over when he read the full scripts. So we'll get into this. Speaking on the Smartless podcast, Hamill recalls his first impression of Luke Skywalker. When I tested, I was like, Harrison, the leading man, I'm the annoying sidekick. I wonder why he thought Harrison was going to be the leading man. Because that's not how Luke was written. Luke wasn't written as a sidekick. So I wonder why he thought that. He recalled, I'm badgering him and all this stuff. It's true that Luke Skywalker follows a classic hero's journey, but Hamill can be forgiven for his misunderstanding. After all, the hero traditionally gets the girl, and it was Han who wound up with Leia instead of Luke. Now, you guys know that one of my Lucas facts was about how originally Luke and Leia were going to be siblings. And then that was changed, and then it was redirected back to them being siblings. So, and George, used a lot of like themes and allegories and stuff like that, and mythologies and all of that to create his Star Wars, right? There's a lot of things that he was inspired by, influenced by, even within our cultures, that he would use various different cultures to design and create villains and heroes and characters and and all of that. So he was influenced, inspired by a lot. And it wasn't just politics. That's just one little aspect of Star Wars. It's something that kept the themes going to where they got from the PT to the OT, but it's not the initial thing, right? And so in George's final decision, Luke and Leia became sister and brother again, like what the original intention was, but how it got there was completely different than probably how George planned. Shit happens. Your scripts, your ideas change as you start developing the story. And when you have other creatives working with you, there can be the influence there. Sure. Yeah. So, but does this mean that what he said means that we misunderstand Star Wars? Let me see what you guys are saying here. Yeah, they are perpetual dumpster fire. That's why I use them for cringe factor. That's why I use them for cringe factor. Because you know what? In reality, people do believe these guys, like these articles. I've had so many people use Screen Rant and CBR against me as proof to counter me. And I'm like, are you serious? Half of these guys, or most of these people who write these articles, don't do their full fucking research. And it's a lot of opinion. But people do believe it as fact. And I find it quite funny that that's how they perceive it. It's called brainstorming. Something Disney does none of. Correct. When Luke uses his Shoda on Mara Jade's steel door, it's disappointing. Thomas Bacon, one of the worst of them. Right. So Assassin says, smash the liker. Smash the liker. That's like us using the Mary Sue. I would say the Mara Sue. The Mary Sue. Oh, fucking shit. All right, let me go back to the article. Let's get into this. All right, let's see here. All right, speaking on this. Oh, okay, I already read that one. All right. Mark Hamill's first impression of Luke shines a light on George Lucas's genius. What do you guys think about that? Luke Skywalker was a different kind of hero. He was the everyday man. And I think people forget that. He was the everyday man, the common man, the everyday man, or whatever it's called. I might be saying it slightly wrong, and I apologize. And so he was the everyday common man so that we can relate to him. He lost family and he regained family. That was the arc. Does it mean through winning the girl at the end? No, because he didn't need to win Leia at the end as a lover, because they were obviously siblings, but also she became his sister. That's another way of, of a hero gaining love, in a sense. It doesn't have to be a relationship love. It could be a rediscovery of family. That kind of love, which basically was the arc of the overall story of loss of love of family because of greed and stuff, versus gaining family back, having that family back and saving the day with that. So Luke, Anakin lost the love of his life because of his choices. He was greedy. He was worried about how it would affect him if he would have lost Padme in birth. And he went down the greedy, selfish side, the dark side, basically, to try to stop that. And in the end, he lost because of love. He went about it in an attachment way, which the whole premise of attachment then evolved to understanding, a better understanding of it in the Order under Luke. Another evolution, but that goes into the EU. We're talking about the movie right now. We're just talking about a certain timeline. And then when we get to Luke, he knows of his father, but in a different way, because you have Owen Lars, protecting him, and when he discovers more about his father, he's intrigued. He wants to know. It's like there's this unconditional love of this man he barely knows of, and that wavers through the whole entire arc within the movies of Luke Skywalker. And it also is, goes towards discovery of Leia being his sister. This is about family, not about the hero finding a love. There's so many different forms of the hero's journey of the common man and how things can happen. And it could also be about finding and reclaiming family and all that. And I probably just answered this whole article and probably did a better job at describing what George was reaching and looking for with what I just talked about than this Bacon guy, Thomas Bacon. Thomas Bacon. So let's move on. Modern viewers have forgotten just how unusual George Lucas's plot really is. I just shared his plot. There's nothing unusual about that. Harrison Ford is the cocky, wisecracking hero figure. Yeah, he is one of the protagonist heroes, and his character arc, his hero's journey is different. It goes from selfish to selfless. A scoundrel pilot who can even win over a princess's heart, and not necessarily. He had some trouble with it because of his attitude. But the more he softened and started opening himself up, the more he started gaining Leia's love. So again, this Thomas Bacon does not quite understand that. He's the traditional lead, and no, he's not. That's not what he is. Lucas gave the lead role to a somewhat whiny everyman hero. There were everyman, common man, whatever. From a galactic backwater whose ultimate act of heroism is lay in setting down his lightsaber rather than using it. What the fuck? What? Lucas gave. Okay, so let's go here. Whose ultimate act of heroism lie in setting down his lightsaber rather than using it. That's not his act of heroism. There's so much more layers to to it than that. Just lying down, throwing down his lightsaber. Oh my fucking God. Are you fucking kidding me? That's a bit of sacrifice right there. And that's a bit of trust in a man that he loves unconditionally, even though he doesn't know that father figure very well. And that father figure has turned evil. He is pleading to the man within, Anakin. And he's putting trust in that man, Anakin, his father, to do the right thing, which is a lot. But that's not the ultimate. Like him throwing down his saber for that is not what the act of heroism is. There are so many acts of heroism within Luke and so many pivotal points with it that's not the single point of it, in a sense. And so just imagine if he didn't appeal, if he didn't get into Anakin's heads, then he would have died. Because Vader wouldn't have saved him. Vader would just had said, okay, bye, motherfucker, kind of deal. But it all goes within the overall arching thing of family love. That is something that stretches through the whole arc of the 6 movies. Let me see what you guys are saying. My time to shine hello has the accuracy of Helen Keller. Girl boss equals commie propaganda. Okay. All right, so let's move on here. Viewed from this perspective, see, like from this perspective, it's his perspective, not what George was creating. And that's the problem, Mr. Bacon. It's your perspective. Luke Skywalker is very different kind of hero. Reading Helm's comment, I couldn't help but remember that Luke Skywalker of Star Wars, the faux Star Wars Last Jedi. So this right here, Mark's comment up here was this right here. When I tested, I was like Harrison Ford's the leading man. I'm the annoying sidekick. I'm badgering him all this stuff. So that reminds this dolt, where is it at? Here it is. From The Last Jedi. So it makes him think, remember the Luke Skywalker, Jake Skywalker of The Last Jedi. You think what? I'm going to walk out with a laser sword and face down the whole First Order? And then he goes on to say, that's Luke Skywalker viewers were expecting to see. And in fact, that's Luke we've eventually been given in the Mandalorian finale. All right, so people were you thinking that after you've seen Luke plead to his father, getting into his father's psyche to redeem him in a sense, by throwing down his saber, sacrificing himself, knowing that if he continued to fight, he could fall to the dark side as well. Did you think that you would get a Luke that you've seen in the Last Jedi of him saying this? You think what? I'm going to walk out with a laser sword and face down the whole First Order. Did you ever think that? Did you ever think that? Because this guy is missing a lot of points here. Like Mark's comment that he said made him think that it was, in fact, what we missed about Luke. That we didn't understand Star Wars based upon what Mark said, and that the Luke that you see in The Last Jedi is the true Luke Skywalker based upon that fucking little bit of information Mark says here. That he's annoying sidekick, basically. And that's not it. That's not it. And then Mr. Bacon forgets to mention that even Mark Hamill at the time when he's going through all of this with the Disney trilogy, realizing that they've totally got Luke wrong. We all know that. Like Mark was like discouraged, like this is not the Luke Skywalker I know. So why is Mr. Bacon forgetting that bit of information that Mark Hamill later said about The Last Jedi and about the Disney trilogy? That's not the Luke Skywalker he knows. Isn't that crazy how dishonest these writers can be? And people fucking believe these articles. All right. Viewed through the lens, Luke Skywalker feels rather more counterculture. He may have trained with the Force, but it is his heart. It is his heart that wins out. His faith in his father. Okay, so now you're coming to terms, but you. Oh my God, this guy. Anyways, I'm going to go on. His love and compassion for others. We all get so excited about Force powers, but the message of Star Wars is that the power won't save the day. In fact, the ones obsessed with power are thralled to the dark side. So, Luke did not give up himself as a Jedi and his Force abilities and his training during that time when he threw his saber down against Sidious, Sidious, or Palpatine, the Emperor. It wasn't about if he could use a Force or not. It was about, of course, winning his father back to the light side and protecting himself from going dark. A Jedi is a Jedi, right? He's like, I'm a Jedi, and Emperor's like, so be it. He stood there as a Jedi, and if you get into the lore more, when Palpatine was basically electrocuting him, Yoda did teach him how to absorb and withstand the Force lightning. But because Luke was still green and using the Force, still beginner, I guess you could say, still learning, not as strong, he attempted, but then he was overwhelmed. And it almost killed him. So it's not about the Force powers. It's not about any of that when he threw down the saber, like he's denouncing it. Because he did try to use to protect himself, but it backfired because, again, he's not that strong yet. Because we see in this evolution of Luke Skywalker, yes, he's the son of the chosen one. Yes, he's got the same abilities and could be stronger than his father. But at this point, he's still very much new because he's only 4 years in, like 3 or 4 years in, or a little less, but still. He was trained unconventional because that's the state that they were in. But he was also foreseen to create the new Jedi Order, right? So let's see what you guys have to say. They take everything they can, twist the intention of George. Communists. This bacon will make you sick. Better to space it and save us all the indigestion. Bacon sounds good now, but yeah. I want some bacon. I haven't had breakfast yet. All right. Our take on Luke Skywalker, a hero for all ages. And of course, they share this picture and all these pictures here. Oddly enough, the old Star Wars expanded universe, you like how they say the old Star Wars expanded universe, now considered non-canon. It's still canon. It will always be canon because it's the history that was made. You can't change history, right? Trod the same ground. What? It trods the same ground? Writers became fascinated by Luke's sheer power. I'll never forget Kevin J. Anderson's Jedi. Okay, so he's saying that Luke didn't care for the Force, and so he threw down his lightsabers and didn't want the power of the Force. That's basically what he said earlier. And now he's saying it's trotting the same ground? Does this guy even know the points he's making here? Did you get what I got here? Because he made it sound like Luke was like, fuck the Jedi powers or the Force powers, fuck being a Jedi. You expect me to go and fight against the by myself against the First Order, and then to say, oh, and then he was himself again, or then he showed up at the Mandalorian. It's so fucking confusing. His point here. This journalist is fake news. Yes. All right. So he goes into Kevin J. Anderson's The Jedi Academy trilogy, which literally saw Luke walk over the surface of a lava lake. Ultimately, though, Timothy Zahn's Hand of Thrawn duology featured an admittedly heavy-handed scene in which the former Emperor's hand, Mara Jade, I was going to say Jade Skywalker, chewed Luke up for always shouting in the Force, meaning he had lost so much. So that's he is misinterpreting these scenes as well to try to make a point, which he is fucking losing here. So in Jedi Academy, he had to prove himself too, because he's recruiting Jedi. And he uses the Force. But does that mean he's going to go dark or anything? No, it doesn't. Does that mean that he lost himself or so much? No, it doesn't. And then you get about 10, 12 years later with the Hand of Thrawn duology. And Mara's like questioning him. And this is more or less about Dark Empire timeline, where Luke thought he was going to go in and defeat the Emperor from within and learn a little bit to understand more about the dark side. So in a way to kind of protect his Jedi from going dark. Kind of backfired on him. It did taint him. That's what that's about. Two different scenarios. So what I don't know what this guy's point he's trying to make. But these are two different these are two different scenarios or events. One with how Luke was tainted and wasn't so self-aware of it. And she was pointing that out versus one where Luke was proving of himself towards recruiting potential Jedis and stuff like that. There's a whole scenario with that I'm not going to get into. And he ends up winning this challenge basically. And so he gains a apprentice. Two different scenarios. Now, during that time, was Luke lost within himself and confused about the Force? Not necessarily, but he was still learning. Was he tainted? Yeah, he was tainted from the events of Dark Empire. That's true. But he was also growing. And so in between the Jedi Academy and the Visions of the Future. Oh no, I remembered Novel's name. I must be autistic, right? Anyways. We see character development, realizations, learning on to recognize certain things about self-awareness. You know, because Luke is a very complex character, I guess you could say, in a sense. Like I talked about earlier for the New Jedi Order timeline that we're talking about. You know, he questions himself. He has fears. He makes mistakes. He does have to have help. And there's some instances that he doesn't need help, you know, but there's so much about his character, and he's not this scary stew where he knows it all. And I like that there's like someone that is considered his equal in a sense. Mara Jade was able to make him more self-aware on some situations in his life regarding going to the dark side. Name a book is very hard. cherry picking shit like they watched on the Star Wars. Normies plagiarized Wikipedia videos and didn't actually understand the concept of trilogy and duology correct. Yeah, that's exactly it. All right, so let's go on here. Mark Hamill's comments remind me so much of this. At first glance, Luke Skywalker of George Lucas's Star Wars is the character who feels like he's the whiny sidekick. Not necessarily, because we see, like in the beginning, he's a teenager. He's naive. He's brash, in a sense. But even in A New Hope, you see growth there. Then once you see him in Empire Strikes Back, there's a bit more maturity there. He becomes a rogue leader. Him and Wedge creates the Rogue Squadron. I have a little bit, I have a short historical timeline on that on my channel here, if you want to watch it later. You know, and he does still make rash decisions based upon a vision of the future that he received, right? So there's a little bit of that. There's still room for him to grow. There's still him wearing his heart on his sleeve. And one depiction of his character in A New Hope doesn't mean he's that type of character after. There is significant growth, as I am proving here, Mr. Bacon. And then once you get into Return of the Jedi, you see a lot more growth, a lot more awareness of self. But yes, there's still more chance, there's still more growth he has to go through. And that's what I discussed about Jedi Academy and Visions of the Future. Because he's basically on his own, in a sense, with materials left for him to learn from, building the Jedi Order and becoming the man we know as the Grand Master, who still makes fucking mistakes then, right? Because in this point of the New Jedi Order in our conversation we had earlier, he's not a Grand Master yet. We don't see that until the end of the New Jedi Order era, and that's the Darkness trilogy. That is not a part of the Legacy era. Darkness is part of the ending of the New Jedi Order era. So there's a lot of that growth. So basing your analysis, Mr. Bacon, on just one movie and then trying to weave it in throughout all the timelines pertaining to Luke in the original lore versus the faux lore, it's very disingenuous, because you're not considering the growth that we see all the way to the end of Return of the Jedi, which is very much significant. And then you're thinking that, you know, because of how Han is perceived and made, this selfish, cocky character who only thinks of himself, that he is supposed to be the main lead character, which is not that, because he's always wanting to leave. He's always thinking about himself. His first bit of selfless act was when he shot Vader off Luke's back. So we started seeing the turn there. We started seeing, we seen a little bit even before then, because you can kind of perceive Han as someone who has been through a lot of shit and is protecting himself. And when you get to read Han Solo's character arc within the EU, you learn so much about him. And you understand why he is the character he is when we see him, first meet him in A New Hope. And that goes with every other character. Like, once you get into their backstory, like, you can even tell, like, even if you didn't read the EU, because the EU is not there to make you understand the movies. It's to expand on the movies, right? And even the characters. So even if you just decided to be a normie and just stick with the movies, you could still put two and two together about Han Solo. He's been through some shit. He's protecting himself. He's not opening himself. It's all about him. And then when you go through his character arc, in the OT, you see him opening to bringing others in, to showing his true self, to wanting that love, you know? And then Leia has her own character, her own feminine hero's journey, I guess you could say, her own hero's journey. And so each one of them has these degree of heroism arcs, right? And character development. Let me see what you guys are saying. It was called The Adventures of Luke Skywalker for the first 2 films. How is Luke a side character? Right, I don't know. And see, he's misperceiving Hamill's comment in the beginning, because it's sure changed after that. Cornhorn doesn't even become a Jedi Master until the end of New Jedi Order. Too much shit going on throughout the series, right? And right now he's kind of in the shadows right now because of what happened on Ithor and stuff. And there's so much death going on. Depth. There's death going on there, but depth going on during that time. Not to be confused with the great Kevin Bacon. Oh, I gotta scroll down and get some of the comments down there. But Mark said he felt like that when auditioning. It doesn't play like that in the movie. What a moron, right? You know, once he got the full script, he realized that it wasn't the way Mark thought it was when he was auditioning. Isn't that amazing how that goes out? How this Bacon moron takes a comment from an audition versus how the script is really written. And how he uses it to gaslight the fans and saying we never, according to what Mark Hamill says in an interview, Star Wars fans never understood Star Wars, basically. See this? Like, it's a very clickbaity type title. Mark Hamill reveals his first impression of Luke Skywalker, proving how badly we still misunderstand Star Wars 48 years later. That's what he's saying. Off of that interview, that just how he felt during what he perceived during the audition versus what the initial story is. So I'm going to finish this paragraph again. I'm going to start the paragraph over again that I read. Mark Hamill's comment reminds me so much of this. At first glance, the Luke Skywalker of George Lucas' Star Wars is a character who feels like he's a whiny sidekick rather than the lead. We knew he was the lead from the start. So I don't know where he's getting that. But the new hope that dawned across the galaxy was not the return of some Superman, some all-confident hero. And that's not the point. That's not the point of this. This was OT is the sequel to the PT, stupid idiots. I'm sorry. I'm like being very concise and straightforward, I guess you could say. So we are getting the back end of how the Empire came to be. No one's expecting a superhero because this movie is not about a superhero. But anyways, some Superman. See how he said Superman? That's why I said superhero. Of some all confident hero who can drive back the villains with a flick of his wrist. If you got this in a hero's journey, it's not a hero's journey. A hero's journey has, let me go ahead and pull it up. Hero's journey. Yeah, we're going to be here a little longer. Hero's journey does not make a superhero journey. Let me see if I can find the one of Luke. Never mind. I'll pull up a generic one here. Let me see if I can. Damn it, I just want the initial clip. There we go. There we go. So we'll get out of here and pull up the hero's journey here. And then we'll start winding down. Here we go. Hero's journey. So Bacon is totally, mind you, there could be some sort of hero's journey for a superhero or something like that. But this mythology, we're talking pure mythology here. So if this applies to superhero, it would be the very first beginning of who they are versus just going into a story of the superhero responding to the events happening and conspiring in the movie. So there's a huge difference with that. So George Lucas was following the hero's journey. So we're not going to get a superhero coming at you and using his powers, abilities right away because, that's not what this is about. You have the call to adventure and the supernatural aid. Threshold guardians, threshold beginning of transformation. You got your mentors in there. So like all this is like a generic form. It can be twisted, moved. And there's one with Luke Skywalker and the hero's journey, and it shares the whole arc. I could have found that one. I've shared it before. You have the challenges and the temptations. You have the helpers along the way. Then you have the revelation, the abyss, death, and rebirth. You have the transformation still going on here, atonement, and then the gift of the goddess are the returning back. So that very generic form here. Let me find the Luke Skywalker one. I like that one too. Luke Skywalker Hero's Journey. There we go. And here it is. Let me see if I can pull it up on full screen here. Oh, son of a bitch. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Let's go ahead and get rid of this one here. And go to this. So interesting to talk about the hero's journey when people are trying to, come up with these weird stretch or reaches or whatever. So Luke Skywalker, the hero's journey. You have the ordinary world. You have the common man arc, basically. And again, I like to use common man than more than anything else. Limited awareness of a problem. So Luke knows that there's a problem out there. He wants to go to the academy because he likes to pilot. He is very assured of his abilities and stuff. And he wants to contribute to some sort of cause, right? And then the increased awareness, call to adventure. And we're still in the ordinary world right now. And so the increased awareness, call to adventure, basically, when he sits down, with the discovery of the droids and the message and, R2 taking off, that's the catalyst. That's what begins him with that call to adventure. He's the catalyst. R2 takes off. Then Luke almost gets defeated, killed by the Tusken Raider, and Ben saves him, and they come, the message is revealed, and he's called to adventure by Ben, and you have the refusal of the call, and then you have the meeting with the mentor, overcoming a reluctance, and part of that is also with his aunt and uncle being killed, murdered, right? That discovery, and he's like, okay, I'm ready. And then you have the crossing of the threshold and committing to the change, again, the death. And we're coming into the special world here. And then the tests, the allies and the enemies, the experimenting with the change. So you start, meeting Han, which becomes an ally. And then, of course, the rescue of the princess, basically, she's an ally as well. And the approach to the innermost cave and preparing for the big change. And so you have the ordeal, attempting a big change. So we have all the special world scenarios that are part of the transformation here. And the reward, seizing of the sword. So basically also giving of the saber. And maybe for Han, that's the the money promised for saving the princess, you know, and so on and so forth. So you see this here. You see this hero's journey applying to Luke and even to Han and Leia in a sense. And of course, you have the road back, the resurrection, and the return with the elixir, or the return, the mastery of the problem, all of this. And you can even stretch this all the way throughout the whole trilogy. Let's see here what you guys are saying. You did the whole stream of the hero's journey. I'm going to have to go back and watch it because I don't remember. But yeah, if you could share it here. It begins with the story arc. It began with the story arc. What a dipshit. Jedi Academy is at a later point in his story arc. Hand of Thrawn duology even later. It's called character progression, correct? Yeah, Pierce, share that video. I would love to see it because I didn't see it. Okay, Matthew says the first trilogy, episode 1 or 4 through 6 were about Luke and his quest to redeem Vader, and 1 through 3 was about the downfall of Anakin Skywalker. Their saga is about the Skywalker family, not the Palpatine. Agree. How embarrassing. Let's see here. Disney made 1 through 9 the Palpatine saga, and he wins in the end. His bloodline kills off the Skywalkers. He gets his final revenge. Only Disney would think this was a good ending. Alphabet Squadron and Rogue Squadron did all the work for Luke. Oh my God. You had to go with that. Oh, that's hilarious. The name Rey means king in Spanish. She's King Palpatine. Thank you so much. I am going to, so you guys check this out here. And after we're done here, if you want to hear Pierce's breakdown of the hero's journey, pretty cool stuff. I did a little bit about Leia's journey on my channel. I never did a part 2, so I think I need to do that. Thanks for reminding me. So with that being said, again, Bacon is gaslighting fans. He is proving that he doesn't understand George's story when it comes to Luke and the Star Wars overarching story with the Skywalkers and the hero's journey. And then Pyrrha says, I will finish a script on Jason's hero's journey for New Jedi Order, but I want to complete the reread so I don't miss stuff. Yeah, it's always good to reread all of that because like even Matt Wilkins has proven that, of missing some points or something when he was doing the reread that he didn't catch the first or second time. And it's funny that when I hear Bacon name, I hear a dog commercial's voice. It's Bacon. Bacon, bacon, bacon. All right. So with that being said, we are done here. Proving again. And then you have people that take these Screen Rant and even CBR articles as truth. And will try to gaslight you and use them against you and stuff. Just like Bacon is gaslighting fans, saying that we, based upon Hamill's comment of his audition, we don't understand Star Wars and the genius of George Lucas. No, motherfucker. You don't understand George Lucas and what he was getting with the hero's journey with the character. And you just gaslighted a bunch of fans. Good job. I think Screen Rant should fire you. Or maybe you fit into what they want. Because, they're not pro George or pro George Lucas era. And as you prove, you are Disney era Star Wars. And that's who Screen Rant is about. Yeah, I said it. And you know what's so funny? I wasn't going to bring this up because it's a nothing burger. I just think it's so funny. But I don't remember the ordeal or the encounter. But you guys know I've used once in a great while CBR's articles. And this probably spun from me using one of the articles. But one of the writers was triggered by me so hard just a few days ago. That he had to have a go at it because I critiqued and criticized his article, and his article was something positive about Star Wars. It was a positive article, and how dare you come and criticize it? Kind of bullshit. That was funny. Yeah. You know, and my cringe factor is about calling out these writers because you have so many dolts, so many vacuous people that make up the Disney Star Wars fandom that believe these articles as truth, that believe these people, these writers as truth to Star Wars. And I've already proven it's not so. I didn't even have to read the whole article, and I already broke down what Star Wars was about. We didn't even have to finish the article after I did that first little rant or explanation or whatever you want to call it. But I wanted to grace the article anyways. And the more I read, the more I was like, this idiot does not understand what he's talking about. It's like he couldn't make his point clear, but you could tell it was very pro-Disney Star Wars, while gaslighting the fans that you don't understand per Hamill's interview about his experience in auditioning. That's a fucking audition. Of course he's not going to understand the full premise of what's going to happen and go on. That's not a statement that is something to make factual about Star Wars and its whole plot and its story and the direction George was going. And then including Disney Star Wars does not make that point either in the direction George was going, because that's not George's fucking story. So we're done here. We're done here. I have Darth Toby by my side. He just laid down here. Oh, he took off. He's like, nope, I'm gone. And I am hungry. I've been sipping on coffee, all caffeinated on an empty stomach. Having fun with you guys talking Star Wars, talking new Jedi Order lore of Vergere. And I can't wait to get more into her lore later on to see what you guys have to say in HoloNet. I guess that's his favorite character, and that's cool. I'm not going to bash you on your favorite character or anything like that. I see her in a whole different, probably different light than what maybe he does, and that's okay. And some of you guys might see her differently than I do too, and that's cool. And we'll discuss that. Yes, catch Rhino's show tonight. Yes. And so thank you guys for hanging out with me. We had up to almost 90 people here. Thank you so much. You guys are fucking amazing. Thank you to the channel members, subscribers, and those who are listening that has not subscribed yet. Come on over, subscribe. If you enjoyed this lore talk and learning more about this character and the new Jedi Order, about Lucas facts, and even the book of the week, at least subscribe for that and hang out with us. Ask questions, get involved, expand your knowledge on Star Wars. Because the more you know, the better equipped you are against these Disney shills, the Disney Star Wars. Or even if you just don't want to approach it that way and you just want to just keep your love of Disney, or not of Disney, fuck that shit, of George Lucas era front and center and in your heart, and as part of one of your hobbies of reading and watching and playing, you're in the right spot still. Clipped, fuck you, Pierce, fuck you. Oh my God. Oh, fuck that shit. I know that slip was so funny. After cooking bacon like that, you should eat. Right. So thank you guys again for hanging out. And next week, since we're now venturing into the balance points area of the timeline, Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the invasion with the Vaughn and where we're at in the timeline. But if there's anything you want to cover that I haven't covered within this initial time frame, let me know. I'm willing to hear, and I'm willing to take suggestions. So, the balance point, it goes back into the state of the New Republic. Maybe we can visit that first again and rehash on where they're at that point. Or maybe, you know what? I haven't done progress of invasion. I said Wedgens the other day had to reenact the Ace Ventura plunder scene. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do the progress of the invasion and include up to balance points. And that'll be our initial point into coming into balance point time frame. That sounds good. And then we'll go back to the new Jedi Order, where they're at, where they're standing, what's going on with them, then the Rogue Squadron and all the other squadrons as well that are alongside them. How does that sound? Because like I said, it's not breaking down the novels, but it's breaking down the events and everything that's going on within the time frame. Dive a little deeper than just novel talk, right? Which is so much fun. So now that we sat here for over 2 hours, I guess I better go outside and touch some grass, talking lore, better get out and touch some grass, at least to reconnect with reality. I think that when you counter people, I think you need to be specific on who you're countering. Because when you go in an approach of anti-EU stuff in the past, and then you use anti-EU lingo that has been used on us, and you aren't specific with that, it's going to be perceived that way. Because we've been through it before. We know the rhetoric. We know how it's applied. It's all that. So, but anyways, that's just my take on everything on that. Maybe one day we won't be at this point of this back and forth bickering and stuff. I don't know. But it's all about Disney Star Wars and how it continues to divide us fans, even in the George Lucas era of Star Wars. We fucking need to get past that point. But will we ever? Probably not. I don't know. Yeah, John is an acolyte shield. He is. I agree. Disney is losing to the EU. Everyone sees it. Right. And one more bit before we close out here. For those who don't understand the EU is a part of the Star Wars saga. It is what kept Star Wars alive between the movies and between the trilogy. It is something that George invested in from the beginning. The franchise did not start out as a movie franchise. The first material that came out that is Star Wars is the comic and the novel. George was very adamant about including all types of medias, even if he wasn't the expert in a certain media, like being an author. That's not his area of expertise. His is movies, right? But he was so interested in having his story shared and expanded by other people that met his rules, his guidelines, and what he wanted for Star Wars, that he created a business with so many departments, LucasArts, the licensing, the film one, ILM. And he also created, content that was outside of Star Wars, right? and also expanded his creativity out, his ILM out to help other studios with their technology, with their film expertise he sent out. So there's a lot of grounds that George covered, but within Star Wars IP itself, going back to that, everything was a part of the continuity of one single continuity, unless it was considered non-canon. The novels, parts of the game on how you played, the story parts of the games and what you see inside the novels, the comics, the shows, and the movies. That's George Lucas' era of Star Wars. This is what this channel is about. So even if you're just a normie, just love the movies, that's cool. I'm not going to bash you for that. But know that we have common ground there, especially if you don't like the direction Disney's taking. So instead of gaslighting gamers of the EU or EU people in general, find some common ground. Create an alliance. You don't have to necessarily like the EU, but you can know that there was value in it for keeping Star Wars alive. And that Star Wars was overseen by George Lucas. And then it has the heart of George Lucas involved in it. And I think that's where people are missing the point. That's where people are missing the point in this whole quote unquote culture war, whatever the fuck it is now. And so we have so many factions. And then people wanting Star Wars to be great again, but under Disney, why? When you fought against the Disney trilogy before then, before your so-called let's make Disney great or Star Wars great again, you were anti-Disney during the time. So what changes that? So there's so many like confusing aspects of that. And yes, I'll call you a fence rider for that, because at one point you were like not liking Disney and the direction they're taking Star Wars, but now all of a sudden when there's something that you could deem good and the bar is so fucking low, it's buried under shit, that you're willing to wade through that shit because something good and you want it good again? What is good? What is good Disney Star Wars? How is it going to save Star Wars? A lot to think about there. A lot to think about there. Am I trying to say, come align with us? Where's your allegiance? No, I want people to think about how they began their stance and where they are now. Where did it change for you? Why are you fighting for Disney Star Wars to be good again when you know, in fact, it's been being destroyed since even before the movies came out, when the EU was tossed? Where do you think good was ever something that Disney was working for or that you were wanting? Where's that good? You know, we know George. He wanted to retire. He wanted to save the company so he didn't have to lay off workers in retirement. And he still wanted to give fans Star Wars. We also know that this retirement factor wasn't his first initial thought. He wasn't really thinking about retiring at first. It was Iger that was planting the seeds because Disney wanted the property. Disney wanted to own it. And it took a year of romancing George to finally get the deal. And a part of that deal, George decided to write some treatments, some ideas down as part of the deal to sell Star Wars. And within that deal, he contracted the big three. And what did that give us? It gave us a lot of shit, a lot of bad Star Wars. And it continues today. So what is this good that these people are looking for in Disney Star Wars? Because it never was there. What is this good? The heart is gone. What is this good? Is it just now just a way of just sticking the pacifier in your mouth and accepting that it's a defeat? So anything good will save Star Wars now? What is this good that you're looking for in Star Wars under Disney? It's not there. The heart is gone. The heart is in George Lucas' era of Star Wars, the creator, the one who overseen everything, the books, the novels, created the movies, helped with the EU. That's where the good is. So I leave you with that bit of thought here. That bit of thought. And thank you guys again for hanging out. Have a good day.
Caf. Lots of it. For me and for the Ready Room. I have a feeling this mission is not one we can fly in our sleep.
And I've always leaned towards if we're going to create something, we should check and see if it existed already to the fans, because it has way more value if we bring that in. And It's like, why would I just replace it with something new? So if we're going to do an admiral, if we're going to do a big military leader, yeah, I could create a new guy, sure. But what about Thrawn? Thrawn is great. Thrawn is a character we all know. Thrawn has a lot of credibility. So then you ask yourself, is it right to use him? And can we use him in a way that's similar to the books? Or are we using him and it's going to go completely into left field? And there have been times when we wanted to use things from the EU, and I was like, yeah, but we can't use it that way, so why? I don't want to use it and change it. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't want to use it and make it something completely different. That's rude.
And this is for the resident shield currently in the chat.
Bitch, sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Bitch, sit down.
Jedi is something that came a little later. When we started building Jedis, we had a lot of Jedis, and we needed more and more Jedis. As we were doing them toward the end, we ended up with a lot of Jedis that looked like people that worked at ILM, with these short little haircuts and looked like they stepped out from behind a computer. And so I was saying we have to get more exotic Jedis. And so we only had so much resources to do these things with, but I do have Twi'leks because we use them quite a bit in other areas in the Senate and as background action. So I have a sort of a wardrobe and a setup of certain kinds of characters. So it was a way of reinventing some of those characters. And I had realized that we had a comic book that has a Twi'lek in it that is a Jedi. There's a whole series actually of her. And I said, well, why don't we put her in this? I mean, she's a comic character, but we'll just fit her in and have her be a background character because that's exotic. That's how the Twi'lek Jedi ended up in the backgrounds of these shots, was to try to use some of the work and effort that the guys in the comic book world had put into things and characters they had created.
Another happy landing.